Hey, let's talk today about launching. Now, I know I talk about launching a lot, but today we're going to talk about the different types of launches there are and which one might be right for your business. Hi, I am Tracy from LaunchTechMadeEasy.com, and I love to talk all things launching. And I also love to help people get their launches done using my Get Launched 5-week bootcamp. We take all of the launch tasks and get them completed in just 5 weeks so that you can have a launch that you're proud of. If you'd like more information, you can reach me at LaunchTechMadeEasy.com. So let's talk launches. There are a lot of different ways to launch, and actually, more are being invented every single day. Probably the most standard, most common form of launch that's been around the longest would be just an email launch. Before there was video, before we could go live on Facebook, people would just send out emails, and the emails would explain what your course, product, membership, whatever, what kind of transformation it was going to offer to the people who enrolled. And you might send out a series of emails that addressed different pain points that people had. And then in the last email, you invited them to join you and to go deeper and made them an offer to join your program. So that's an email launch. It's the lowest tech form of launch that there is, but there are things you still need to be considerate of when you're doing the emails, like you be very intentional about what the emails say and which pain points they're hitting on and the transformation that you're promising, because you really want to take people in their mind through a journey where they're going to reach a desired goal at the end. So it'd be an email launch. The next most common is a video launch. Now, video launches can range from a multi-part, highly produced video series. Usually it's 3 pre-launch content videos, which would be the videos that kind of really get people aware of the problem and kind of start to address some of the pain points they have. And then the fourth video would be a sales video that would explain how they could go deeper with you by purchasing your course, membership, or coaching program. And video series have been around for a while. It used to be that when you did a video series, you would do, say, one on Monday, you'd release the next video on Wednesday, and then the third video on maybe a Friday, and then you'd open your cart maybe the following Monday or Tuesday. However, recently it's become really popular to allow people to binge your video series. So people will release all the videos at the same time and open cart right away. So that's another way to look, a kind of fresh perspective on the video series. It's something you need to play around with, and it's the binge series is not something I recommend for your first launch because it's kind of an advanced technique, and it requires you to really make sure you're dialed in and that you have your content really, really tight in those pre-launch videos, because you don't have the days in between each video to kind of get a pulse for the people who are on your list and what they're thinking about the videos you've released. Typically with a multi-part video series, those days in between each video release, you're looking at replies to your emails, you're looking at comments on your social media posts, you're looking at comments under the videos that they've already seen to kind of figure out where are people stuck, what are their concerns about this, what are their questions, and you can pivot and change future emails and maybe even future videos if you haven't shot them yet to kind of address those needs. When you offer a video series to be binged, you don't have that ability to kind of pivot and take in information and change and be responsive to the comments and things that people are giving you. So that's a video series email. Now, webinar email or video series launch. Webinar launches are also a really popular method. Now, these are more popular with followers of people like Amy Porterfield. The video series launch is a technique of Jeff Walker and Product Launch Formula. Amy Porterfield has Digital Course Academy, and she really promotes the use of a webinar launch. And so what she'll do is she does a highly polished slide deck and script and filmed webinar that she then offers out to people live every couple of days during her launch. Sometimes she'll do 2 or 3 times within one day, but she always does the same webinar. With one exception. At the end of each webinar, she does a live Q&A, and that live Q&A is going to be different depending on the people that are on the webinar, of course. Now, what's really cool about this idea is that, let's say you do the first webinar on Monday, and you go through the Q&A and you get a few questions. You can then take those questions and you can think, okay, do I need to change my slides at all? Do I need to address this in my script? before I do the next webinar. And you can make the webinars kind of fluid that way. So the webinar content itself is the same, but again, you're building the webinar to address the questions, and each webinar gets a little bit stronger. Now, a really tempting thing for people to do with webinar launches is to record the webinar and then just keep sending out the same recording over and over again. So you might even pretend, I hate it when people do this, but they pretend that the webinar is live, but actually you're watching a recording. And ways that you can tell that it's not live, not that it necessarily matters, but it just bugs me, is if you can stop the webinar and go backwards or forwards, it's clearly not live. If you can't see the comments, it's probably not live. And if you type a comment in and they never get to your comment, but they get to other people's comments, it doesn't always mean it's not live, but it could mean that it was recorded when it was live and they're just replaying the recording. So the downside to doing a pre-recorded webinar and replaying it over and over again is that you don't get that chance to interact with your audience and to get the real-time feedback from them. It also is dangerous to do anything pre-recorded like that over and over again until you know that you've nailed it and you've optimized it and it really, really sells. So particularly if it's your first webinar and your first time launching a product, to record it once, probably in the quiet of your own studio without actual live people, and then send that out to people or allow them to register and you play that recording for them. It really doesn't allow you to not only, kind of get a feel for what's going on, but you don't know if it's going to convert or not because you've never offered it before. So it could very well be that your product that you offer at the end is awesome, but people don't get all the way to that product because it's the webinar itself that has problems. So don't ever, ever pre-record something that hasn't been tested and just put it out there and hope that it's going to work. Make sure you do it live a few times so that you are sure that it converts before you reuse it as a recorded webinar. Another type would be a challenge. Now, this is a little bit less common. Some people think it's a little bit more work, but what a challenge launch really does is it really allows people to see the transformation that you're going to offer them throughout the week of the challenge. And the way that this typically works, the way that I've seen it work the best, is you do some kind of short video or email or something that explains to people what you're going to be offering during a free challenge coming up. And it gives them from the start point to the finish point within 5 days is typically how long they are. Sometimes they go a little bit longer. But so you send out an email or a video or something introducing them to the challenge. They sign up, they participate in the challenge. And then at the end of the challenge on the last day, you have a live webinar where you then talk to them about the ability to go deeper with you. Now, this is a little bit more complicated because you still need to do some piece of content to get them interested in and enrolled in your challenge. You need to create the content for the challenge, and challenge content can be tough to create because you need them to get transformation in a short period of time without putting a whole lot of time and effort into the challenge tasks themselves. So if you want them to get from point A to point B in a week, you need to make sure that they get there by doing only 5 to 10 minute tasks each day, because if they're longer than that, nobody will finish the challenge. So keep the challenge tasks each day very, very short. That means that getting from point A to point B can't be a huge, long process. It needs to be something that can be done very quickly, and it has to be fairly easy so that they can get it done and feel successful, and then realize, hey, this really worked for me, so now I totally trust the process and I want to go deeper. And then on the last day of the challenge, you will still need to do the webinar of some sort so that you can convert that people from the challenge. You can take their success that they experienced and turn it into a sale. Okay. Similar to challenges are summits, and summits are even a higher level of work. I'm kind of going in order of least to most difficult. Summits are more work because you have to plan the whole summit content, and at the end of the summit, you lead into your paid product. Now, summits can also be done as a paid product in and of themselves, but when they're used as a part of a launch, usually the summit itself is free, and people are allowed to come in, watch the summit, take in the speakers, get a bunch of learning, but then maybe what they really want or really need is to go deeper with you, and then you offer that at the end of the summit so that they can actually implement the things that they learned on the summit. Again, that requires a lot of organization. Even if you're not one of the summit speakers, You need to be able to reach out to people in your network who would be able to be really strong summit speakers. You're going to need to still do all of the emails to enroll people into the summit, the landing pages, the things that would require. And there's a real tech component to a summit too, making sure that, is everybody going to pre-record their content and provide it to you? Do they have the tech on their end to make sure that they sound good and that they look good? Is the content going to be pre-recorded? If it's not pre-recorded and it's live, what happens if the live doesn't work? So there are a lot of issues that can come up with summits too, but for the people who know how to do them and have been able to use them, they're very, very successful, profitable. And then finally, there's a live launch. Now, the reason a live launch to me seems harder is because there's so many unknowns. Any of the other pieces, you have some bit of the content that has been done ahead of time. You might have a script, or you might have a slide deck, or you maybe have pre-recorded your videos, but something has been done ahead of time so that it kind of eliminates some of the risk. So let's say you have a series of videos. Even though you might be doing the videos and then having live Q&As interspersed between the videos themselves are done. So it doesn't matter if your internet goes down. It doesn't matter if today your computer camera doesn't work. It doesn't matter, if whatever tech challenges might happen, you can still get those videos out. During a live, you never know what's going to happen. You don't know if the UPS man is going to come to the door in the middle of your live. You don't know if your internet's going to go out. You don't know if, you're going to have some other kind of snafu or challenge. And it's hard for a lot of people to be able to take in everything that's going on around them, the questions that are coming in, and stay on track with the content that they're trying to deliver. So that's a pretty advanced technique to make a live launch work and still get it to convert to sales at the end. Because particularly for me, I know if I'm live, I tend to give away far more information than I should, and I kind of go off on tangents rather than staying really tight and concise. So if somebody asks me a question on a live, I might go off a little ways that's going to take me away from what my core message should be. And at the end, instead of ending up right here where I wanted to be, I might be ending up on topic a little bit off, which is going to hurt my conversions. So you have to be pretty experienced to do a live, and you have to really know your content. So that's why I think a live is a little bit more challenging. Now, the other thing you need to consider is the audience for your launches. There are 3 different types of launches that people typically do. The first is called a beta launch, or some people call it a seed launch if you're in the Jeff Walker world. And those launches are for people who are either starting out with a brand new product that they've never launched before, or they're starting out with a brand new list, probably a small list that they've never launched to before. And the way that the beta launch works is you do the launch, but you scale it way down. So if it's a video series, it might only be 1 video in the series, or maybe 2. Maybe it's a video that does a little bit of teaching, and then there's a sales video. But you haven't actually created the product yet. You're selling them on the transformation that they're going to receive. And in your mind, you know what you're going to offer in the course or the membership or whatever, but you haven't actually created it yet. And the reason you don't create it ahead of time is because you don't, with 100% without a doubt, know what exactly the people who buy the product actually want. So if you create it before they buy it, you might be creating something that is going to miss the mark. So with a beta or a seed launch, you take your ideal clients that you've gathered in your list and you say to them, I am going to teach you how to do X. And then when they buy into your program, and you give them some ideas of the transformation that they're going to receive, because you should know, I know how to, like for me, I know how to get people launched. So I can tell them, when you do my boot camp, you are going to get your launch done in 5 weeks. And I'm going to do that a number of different ways. I'm going to have some live calls with you. I'm going to do some workshops with you. You're going to get some trainings, but I don't get super specific into what the trainings will be, what we're going to cover on the live calls. I just tell them that this is how you're going to get to your goal. And for most people, that's enough, because I'm selling them on the transformation. Then the first week of the class, the first time that I offer it, before the class starts, like as soon as they've signed up, I say to them, what is your biggest question about launching? What is your biggest sticking point? And maybe I planned on the first week being all about tech. getting past your tech challenges. But I ask that question and people say, I don't understand the terminology. I don't know what a landing page is. I don't know how to create a lead magnet or even what a lead magnet should be. Well, then I know, oh my gosh, before I teach them the tech, I need to teach them the terminology. So then the first week of the course becomes terminology. I'll still get to the tech, but I need to hit what they need first. Has to be the first thing that I cover. Then after I teach them the terminology, I pull them again at the end of that week and I say, now next week, what is your biggest question about tech? And I take in their questions. And so I might think their biggest question about tech is automations. But what I find out is they don't know what an integration is, or they've heard the word, but they don't know how to put an integration together. And so then I realize, okay, I have to address integrations next week. And as I do this each week, I'm recording the content, and that becomes my course to launch in future launches, because now the course is created and it was created to be exactly what my ideal client wants. So that's a beta launch or a seed launch. Doesn't have a lot of detail in the selling process. That's why you only have one video. And you're selling more of the process. And you can be upfront about them. You are in my beta group. You are going to get a course that is designed exactly for what you need it to be. And then at the end, I'm going to give you feedback, or you're going to give me feedback, and you're going to help me create this really awesome course that I'm going to offer for more money later on down the line. Okay. Sometimes people call that a founder's launch too. So that's the first type of launch. Second type of launch is an internal launch. Now, an internal launch is done to an existing list. So maybe you already have a big list of people and you already have a course that you know is a really good course because you've sold it before. The key is it's a course that you've sold before. It's not a course that you've created and never sold, because you don't know if that course is actually what they need or not. So for an internal launch, you're launching to a list that you already have, and you're launching them on a product that you've already created and sold in the past. So this would be after you've done the beta launch or the seed launch. Your list has grown, because your list will grow during a launch, because more and more people will hear about your free masterclass or webinar or whatever, and that will build your list. Then you will have created the course at the end of the seed launch or the beta. And then you will take that course you've already created and you will relaunch it to the people who are on your list, 6 months or a year later. And then the final type of launch is a JV or an affiliate launch. JV means joint venture launch. This is when you've really nailed your systems. You know what your product is, you know it converts, you know you've got all of your launch emails and your open cart emails and your closed cart emails are solid. Your videos are good to go and they convert. Then you start offering other people to join your launch and to perhaps email their lists and invite them to join your launch. And in return, if their people on their list buy from you, then you will pay the JV a percentage. It ranges from 10% of the total sale to 40% of the total sale. But if the person who buys from you actually comes from one of your JV partners, that JV then gets a percentage of that sale. And the reason you don't want to do that until you're ready is because you don't want to burn your JVs. If a JV has an email list, let's say they have an email list of 10,000 people that really convert for them, it's a warm audience, this is their moneymaker, this is their list, and people really protect their lists. You don't want to tell that person that you're going to really take care of the people on their list and then have something happen where you have a tech problem, you have a sales page that doesn't convert, you have emails going out at the wrong times or something like that. You really want to know that you've got your process nailed before you start inviting JV partners in. Okay, so that was a lot of content on launching. I hope that I didn't overwhelm you or confuse you. If I did, you can always reach out to me at launchtechmadeeasy.com. And I have a little offer for you. For those of you who are planning to launch, I have a freebie that might be interesting for you. It's called the Launch Checklist. Pretty self-explanatory name. And it lists out for you all of the different tasks that you need to keep track of during a launch. There's a lot, and it can be hard to keep track of everything that needs to be done and in what order it needs to be done. And so I've put together the launch checklist, and it's at LaunchTechMadeEasy/launch-checklist. And I'll put the link in right below this video. So I hope you've learned something, and I look forward to talking with you in the future. Bye-bye.